against a civilian building located in the Jabalia camp, which caused the death of at least 66 people. From Gaza, our correspondent Huda Hegassi with the details.
Early hours of the morning on this day, the Israeli army committed one of the most atrocious massacres against the innocent civilian population, specifically in the northern area of the Gaza Strip, in the camp of Jabalia. At approximately 1 o'clock in the morning, the Israeli army bombed a civilian building in the Al-Mashouria area, in the camp of Jabalia in the northern area of the Gaza Strip. It was a building that was made up of more than 6 floors and where more than 200 Gazans were evacuated. It was a direct attack that caused the death of more than 66 people, several of them children, women, elderly, and the injured of a large number. However, the number could still increase as people are missing, people who are in the rubble. And in the face of this massacre committed by the Israeli army, the director of the hospital, Kamal Adwan, has sent a statement to the international community and all the free countries of the world. In this statement, it has been assured that Israel is making restrictions and is making the work of medical teams more difficult. It has been assured that the ambulance cars, the civil defense teams, and the paramedics have a lot of difficulty getting to this scene of the incident and being able to transfer the victims and the injured due to the lack of mechanism and the lack of staff, as well as the lack of ambulance cars. Israel also attacks anyone who tries to help the injured or who tries to transfer these victims. Therefore, the main message has been sent that Israel must stop these massacres and, above all, must stop the attacks on the medical teams and must stop these restrictions so that at least the injured can save their life. The second statement that the director of the hospital, Kamal Adwan, has also sent, which is one of the few hospitals that remains active in the northern area, is the reiterated call that this hospital has made to the international community, especially in light of this military operation carried out by the Israeli army for more than 45 consecutive days. In that statement, the director assured that the hospital is under constant siege by the Israeli army. 2 days ago, the army also bombed the third floor of that building, and therefore the message is that after these repeated calls, the international community has not responded. No one is doing anything to stop this crime and these atrocities. Also, in that statement, the situation that the Gaza Strip is experiencing in that area has been reiterated in light of the lack of food, in light of the lack of humanitarian aid and basic needs. In addition, the director has assured that today 17 cases of minors have arrived who have symptoms of malnutrition, and therefore the final message has been that Israel must allow the opening of the borders. It must allow the entry of humanitarian aid, food, and above all, fuel and medical supplies to hospitals, so that these medical centers can continue to provide the necessary help, so that the wounded and the patients can continue to be treated in light of this siege imposed on this camp, and above all, the increase of bombings in that area of the coastal.
Brazilian federal police formally accused former President Jair Bolsonaro in the case of attempted coup d'etat against President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Our correspondent Brian Meyer has the details.
In Brasilia, Brazil's federal police have just released their final report of a nearly 2-year investigation into the failed January 8th, 2023 coup attempt, in which thousands of people stormed the Supreme Court building, the Congress building, and the presidential palace, destroying property. Well, across Brazil, high-tension electrical towers were sabotaged, leading to blackouts in an attempt to pressure President Lula into declaring a state of emergency, which would have turned power over to the military. Included with this final report is a list of 37 names of people who have been indicted for 3 crimes: forming an organized criminal organization, attempting a coup, and trying to create a rupture with the democratic rule of law. The most prominent name on this list, former President Jair Bolsonaro, who's already been indicted for 2 other crimes. Also on this list, his former vice presidential candidate in 2022, General Walter Braga Neto, who was also his defense minister, General Augusto Heleno, who many people around the world remember as being the commander of the Minustah troops during the notorious Cité Soleil massacre in Haiti, who served as Bolsonaro's chief of institutional security. Also, the former chief of Bolsonaro's intelligence apparatus, ABIN, Alexandre Ramagan, and a former employee of the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia, Felipe Martins. So what are the next steps? The report has been submitted to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General is going to review all of the evidence and decide for each individual case if the government will formally press charges. This process is expected to take a couple of weeks because it's a long document, and then trials will start being scheduled. It's important to remember this is Bolsonaro's 3rd indictment, so his legal troubles are mounting. And the idea that he could get any kind of amnesty along with the other people who've been arrested for involvement in the coup attempt, is quickly fading away as his legal worries mount.
Russian President Vladimir Putin stated on Thursday the Ukraine-Russia conflict has acquired a global character after the recent missile attacks on the Kursk and Bryansk regions launched by Ukrainian military with US-made long-range weaponry. This way, Putin stressed it is impossible to use such weapons throughout Russian territory without specialists from the countries where they were manufactured in. In this regard, he alerted the US government is pushing the world towards a global-scale conflict, stating it became the force that destroyed the international security system. In addition, the Russian head of state confirmed the successful November 21st strike on a Ukrainian military-industrial facility using the latest Russian medium-range system Oreshnik, which existing missile defense systems are not able to intercept. The Russian president assured his country prefers peaceful means, but is prepared for any development of events.
We consider ourselves entitled to use our weapons against the military facilities of those countries that allow their weapons to be used against our installations. And if there is an escalation of aggressive actions, we will respond with equal determination and proportion.
And precisely just a few months away from the swearing-in of President-elect Donald Trump in the United States, we invite to our studio Professor Carlos Garrido, Director of the U.S. Midwestern Marx Institute and Secretary of Education of the Communist Party USA. Professor, Trump is already naming the members of his cabinet, and one of those names is Marco Rubio, who is known for professing a profound hatred towards Latin American progressive nations. What can the region expect for the upcoming years with these names involved in the U.S. decision-making?
So what we've seen in action is that who Trump really represents is the interests of the elite. And as far as Latin America, that pick with Marco Rubio shows that he's only going to continue the hybrid warfare, the sanctions, the blockade, the unilateral coercive measures against countries that decide to stand up for themselves, that decide to postulate their own sovereignty and decide to have a revolutionary socialist route for themselves and their people, countries like Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, etc. So what we'll see from Trump is more hybrid warfare, while he gives symbolic gestures to his base, such as giving someone like Thomas Massie, the most critical individual in Congress right now of AIPAC, the Zionist lobby. Is he offering him a position with regards to foreign policy, which is why his base likes him? No, he offered him Secretary of Agriculture, something that's completely irrelevant for the reasons why his MAGA base likes Massie. And it also opens up a space, of course, for the Zionist lobby to put someone in Kentucky that is not as critical of the Zionist entity as Thomas Massie is. The same with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., someone who's very popular with the MAGA base. What position is he going to have? Is he Secretary of State? A position which the base would be interested in, because RFK is someone who has spoken against the proxy war against Russia, who has said that he's against sanctions, he's against the blockade against Cuba, as his uncle at one point was and was murdered by the institutions of the deep state for being so. And he's someone who's free speech. He wants to defend civil rights that are currently being attacked by both parties in the US. What position is RFK getting? Is he getting a position that is connected to the reasons why the MAGA base likes him? Of course not. The position he's getting has to do with health, which, okay, is something the American people care about. We know we're all getting poisoned and sick with this for-profit food system, but I'm sorry, but the question of war and sanctions and genocide is much greater. So what we'll see from Trump is a continuation of this war hawk policy against the whole world, this imperialist policy, while trying to posture to his popular base the fact that some form of symbolic victories for the reasons why they elected him, which is because he presents himself as anti-establishment. And I don't think the American people are going to fall for it. They're way too smart. The thing that distinguishes the MAGA base from the people that vote for the Democrats is that the base of the Democrats are never critical of the Democrats. You can look at the most ardent supporters of the Democrats or the most mild ones. None of them ever want to really genuinely carry out in a meaningful way critiques of the Democratic Party. That's not the case with the MAGA base. The MAGA base has criticized Trump multiple times in the past and is currently criticizing him for the appointment of neoconservatives within his government. They're criticizing him for his positions on this genocide that, according to the Lancet report, the genocide in Palestine, has taken more than 200,000 lives of innocent people, most of them kids. So I think this is going to bring about a definitive break between the popular MAGA base and Trump's figure as the sort of representative of that base. And that base is going to be up for grabs, and hopefully it's up for grabs by more progressive forces in the US that are developing already.
Professor, many believe Republicans and Democrats differ over the most pressing priorities for the nation's immigration system, with Democrats being showed as the ones who apply more humane and softer measures. However, data reveals that there is no big difference in terms of immigration policies and deportation numbers. What is your opinion on this?
The reality is this, and it might be uncomfortable for some people to accept, but Obama deported more people than Trump. And at the current rate, it's true of the Biden regime as well. So why is it such a central part of the Republican and Trump's campaign to be against immigration, which is something that they try to spin with a popular appeal? They try to tell the working class base, hey guys, I know your lives are horrendous. You know whose fault is it? It's not the fault of the elite. It's not the fault of the ruling class of this country that has miserated you, that has indebted you, and that has kept you in the most profound forms of socio-alienation that leads you to do shootings and to do all these horrendous things that we Americans have to live through. No, it's not the problem of the system or the ruling class. It's the immigrants' problems. Those people that are coming from countries that we destroyed with our hybrid warfare and with our imperialist policies, they're the ones that are to blame. So what does that do? It divides people who have fundamentally the same interests, who are antagonized against the same group of people, which is the American elite.
Thank you very much, Professor. We were speaking to Professor Carlos Garrido, Director of the U.S. Midwestern Marx Institute and Secretary of Education of the Communist Party USA, just a few months away